Open Language English.
Hi everyone, you're listening to an elementary lesson from Open Language. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Chris.
Today we have a very yummy lesson.
Steaks.
Yeah, steaks. So a steak is basically a piece of meat.
Right, and steaks could refer to lots of kinds of meat. So it could be a beef steak or a pork steak. But typically, if you just say the word steak, you mean a beef steak.
Yeah. So today we're at a restaurant, a steakhouse, and two people, they're trying to order their favorite types of steak. Let's listen to the dialogue now.
Dialogue first time.
I hear they have the best selection of steaks here.
Perfect. Hopefully they have something for the both of us.
Yes, I like my steak thick and well done.
And I like mine juicy and rare.
You should try their filet mignon. I hear it's delicious.
That's a good idea. I'll get that with a baked potato and seasonal vegetables.
I might try the ribeye steak with mashed potatoes and a garden salad.
Should we get some red wine to go with our steaks?
Sure, let's get a Napa cab.
Dialogue second time.
I hear they have the best selection of steaks here.
Perfect. Hopefully they have something for the both of us.
Yes, I like my steak thick and well done.
And I like mine juicy and rare.
You should try their filet mignon. I hear it's delicious.
That's a good idea. I'll get that with a baked potato and seasonal vegetables.
I might try the ribeye steak with mashed potatoes and a garden salad.
Should we get some red wine to go with our steaks?
Sure, let's get a Napa cab.
Dialogue third time.
I hear they have the best selection of steaks here.
Perfect. Hopefully they have something for the both of us.
Yes, I like my steak thick and well done.
And I like mine juicy and rare.
You should try their filet mignon. I hear it's delicious.
That's a good idea. I'll get that with a baked potato and seasonal vegetables.
I might try the ribeye steak with mashed potatoes and a garden salad.
Should we get some red wine to go with our steaks?
Sure, let's get a Napa cab.
Chris, it sounds like they made some pretty nice choices.
They did. It makes me very hungry just listening to that dialogue.
Yeah, so in the beginning of the dialogue, the man says, I hear they have the best selection of steaks here.
Right. So that means they have a lot of choices of kinds of steaks, but
So-
also very high quality choices.
Yes. So selection means there are a lot of choices,
Correct.
right? And the best selection, like Chris says, it means they're very high quality, very good ones.
Yes.
And what does the woman say?
She says, perfect.
Perfect. Perfect means very, very good.
Yeah, it's just another way of saying great, awesome, wonderful.
And then she says, hopefully they have something for the both of us. What does the man say he likes his steaks?
So he says he likes his steak thick and well done. So two different qualities of the steak.
Yeah, let's look at the first one. Thick.
So the opposite of thick is thin. So thick just means literally wide, or in the case of a steak, it's a relatively big piece of meat.
Yeah. So he likes his steak thick and well done.
Yeah, and so well done is a way of cooking meat, and we'll talk about some of the different ways of cooking meat. Well done means it's very well cooked. It's cooked a long time.
Yeah, so if you cut your steak, a well-done steak is not pink or red, right, in the middle.
It should be all brown looking, and maybe even the outside might look a little bit blackened, charred.
Yeah. So usually a well-done steak is a little bit dry, in my experience.
Right, and that's probably the bad part of a well-done steak.
Yeah, but some people, they don't like to eat meat that's pink or red, right?
Right,
So
maybe they're worried about it not being safe to eat because it's not cooked well enough.
Yeah, so they might choose a well-done steak.
Correct.
And what does the woman say?
So the woman says, I like mine juicy and rare.
So I like mine, that means my steak, right?
Correct.
I like mine juicy and rare.
Right. And so juicy means it has a lot of juice, so a lot of liquid. Or in the case of a steak, maybe it means there's some blood that is
Yeah.
still in the steak. When you cut into it, some of that liquid comes out of the steak.
Yeah. So juicy and rare. Now, rare is the opposite of well done.
Yes. And so let's talk a little bit about the different ways that you might have your steak cooked. So rare is cooked the least.
So it's very red or pink in the center.
Red, pink in the center, and rare by definition means you will have a little bit of blood still in the meat.
So that's the least cooked.
That's the least cooked. So next up from rare would be called medium rare.
It's still rare.
It's
but
still rare. It's still pink. It has to be pink still, but it may not be so bloody.
Oh.
Yep. Then the next up from medium rare is medium.
Medium basically means middle, right?
Right, middle.
So this might be, 50% cooked.
Right, it's got maybe just a tiny bit of pink, but
Yeah.
it's mostly cooked all the way through.
Medium. And this is a safe choice if you don't want your steak to be too pink, to be too bloody, but you also don't want it to be very well done and dry, then you can choose a medium steak.
Exactly.
And then, of course, there's well done.
That's the last one. That's cooked the longest, and some people don't like well done meat because they feel like it takes the taste and the flavor out of the meat.
Yeah, I
Cooked
feel
too
like,
long.
I feel like people who really are into steaks usually would not order a well done steak.
Yes,
They like the bloodiness, right? They
it's
like
true.
the red. Yeah.
And that's because they think that's where the most flavor is. You get the most flavor from the meat if it's cooked a little bit less.
And also it's very juicy and it's very tender. So the word tender is not in the dialogue, but I think it describes this next type of steak we're going to hear.
Exactly. And so they talk about you should try the filet mignon.
So the man makes a recommendation. He says you should try their filet mignon.
Right. And so this is actually not an English word, but it's used very often.
It sounds French to me,
It
is it?
That's because it is French. Oui, it is French. But filet mignon is just a type of steak. So it's meat that comes from a particular part of the cow, the animal. And it's known to be very high quality, very soft and tender as meat.
So tender means it's not very dry and it's very easy to chew.
Yes.
right?
So the opposite of tender might be tough.
Yeah.
So you could say a tender steak, it's soft, chew very easily. A tough steak is very difficult to chew and it's kind of dry and
It's
hard.
like, chewing on a piece of wood.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And filet mignon usually is quite expensive, even though it's a very small piece of steak. But it's very high quality, so it's usually quite expensive.
Right. And it's a very famous kind of steak to get because of that.
Now, I like ordering filet mignon because it's very tender and it's a smaller piece of steak.
Right.
So if you want to maintain your figure, you don't want to put on too much weight, it's good. And it tastes really good, right?
That's true.
And the guy says, I hear it's delicious.
Right. And delicious is just a longer way of saying is really good tasting.
Yeah.
It's like if it's really, really good tasting, then you could say it's delicious.
It's delicious. Okay, so the woman thinks it's a good idea, and then she says, I'll get that with a baked potato and seasonal vegetables.
Right. And just to compare these, we'll talk a little bit about some of the alternate side dishes in the future, but baked potato is a potato that is cooked as a whole. So it has the skin on the potato still, and it's very fresh. It's a very common side dish with steak.
Yeah, so a baked potato might come with a little bit of butter on top, right?
Maybe a little bit of butter, a little bit of sour cream,
Yeah.
also very common.
So you just mentioned the word side, a side dish.
Right. And so you have a main dish or a main course, such as the steak.
Yes.
And then a side dish is some other smaller food that comes with the main
And
food.
usually it's some kind of vegetables, right?
Yeah, if you're eating meat, then it's nice to have a vegetable to go along with it. If you have a side dish that's also meat, that's a lot of meat for one meal.
So here she chooses 2 side dishes, a baked potato and some seasonal vegetables.
Right. And seasonal vegetables just means some sort of fresh vegetable.
So the word seasonal, it describes it's in season. So if it's spring, then she's probably getting some vegetables that grow in spring.
Right. Whatever vegetables are growing at that time of the year.
Seasonal
So that
vegetables.
they're fresh. Yep.
And very often on the menu, it would just say seasonal vegetables. It won't tell you exactly what kind of vegetable it is.
Right. And they will change depending on what time of the year
Yes.
it is. Yep.
All right, so what does the man choose?
So the man chooses a rib-eye steak. So this is a different kind of steak.
And this is very American, isn't it?
It's another famous kind of steak. So rib-eye steak. It's first of all, it's a larger piece of meat.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger than a filet mignon, for
Yes.
example.
And so it's called a rib-eye because there is actually a piece of bone in the middle of the steak, a small circle that looks like an eye.
Yes.
And that's the rib. So it's a rib-eye steak. It's a little bit larger. It's not as thick, but it isn't as tender as a filet mignon.
Yeah, and it also has pieces of fat.
Correct. So it's got around the edges, maybe big pieces of fat that you would cut off.
Yeah.
Filet mignon does not have fat.
Yes. So he wants to try the ribeye steak with mashed potatoes and a garden salad.
Right. And so mashed potatoes, a baked potato is a whole potato. Mashed potato means that whole potato has been smashed or mashed.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the skin, right?
Usually does not have the skin.
Yeah, and this is something very good for little kids or even babies because it's very smooth. It's being smashed and mashed.
Right.
Yeah, so mashed potatoes and a garden salad. Now, this is a very basic, simple, but very healthy salad.
Right. Just lettuce, tomatoes, maybe some onions, and a dressing, some sort of...
Yeah, I always feel a garden salad is very boring.
It can be, but again, if you're having a big steak and mashed potatoes, those are both very heavy
Heavy.
foods. And so you might just want a simple, light salad on the side.
Exactly. Okay, then another important part of a steak meal is the wine.
Maybe the most important part of a steak meal.
So the woman suggests, should we get some red wine to go with our steaks?
Right. And so there's 2 things here. One, red wine versus white wine, of course. Red wine usually goes with meat.
Yeah.
White wine would go with, say, fish.
Yeah.
So that's very common. And then this phrase, to go with. That's an interesting way of saying it. But it doesn't mean literally to go somewhere.
To leave.
To leave,
Yeah.
to travel to a new location with the steak and wine. It just means to accompany or to have together, have food together.
So usually we use this phrase when we're talking about food, right?
Very common with food. So
For example, red wine goes well with red meat.
correct. Or you could say, let's have some French fries to go with our hamburgers.
Or a hamburger goes well with French fries.
Exactly.
And they're kind of paired together, right? They're nice pairings.
They're like friend foods that you should always try to eat together.
Yes. And the guy, of course, agrees, and he suggests a type of red wine.
So he uses 2 abbreviations for a type of wine, which makes him sound like he knows a lot about wine, maybe. So he says a Napa Cab.
Let's get a Napa Cab.
And so the first part of that Napa, that means the wine is from Napa, California.
And, yeah, Chris should be very familiar with Napa because you're from California.
I am, and you can always be more familiar with Napa. You should go at least once a year to become familiar with Napa and wines in Napa. But
Well, I've traveled there. It's beautiful. So Napa is in California, just outside of San Francisco.
right, beautiful area, very famous in California for wines.
And the full name is Napa Valley.
Correct. So it's this particular valley where lots of wine, grapes are grown, and very, very famous in the United States.
And they're famous for their cab.
Right. So cab is short for another French word, Cabernet Sauvignon, which is a type of wine, but it's named after the type of
Grape.
which
Yeah.
makes the wine.
Yeah. So a Napa cab goes very well with steaks.
Correct. If you say, I'll have a Napa cab, you sound like you know what you're talking about with wine.
Yes. And let's listen to the dialogue 3 more times.
Dialogue first time.
I hear they have the best selection of steaks here.
Perfect. Hopefully they have something for the both of us.
Yes, I like my steak thick and well done.
And I like mine juicy and rare.
You should try their filet mignon. I hear it's delicious.
That's a good idea. I'll get that with a baked potato and seasonal vegetables.
I might try the ribeye steak with mashed potatoes and a garden salad.
Should we get some red wine to go with our steaks?
Sure, let's get a Napa cab.
Dialogue second time.
I hear they have the best selection of steaks here.
Perfect. Hopefully they have something for the both of us.
Yes, I like my steak thick and well done.
And I like mine juicy and rare.
You should try their filet mignon. I hear it's delicious.
That's a good idea. I'll get that with a baked potato and seasonal vegetables.
I might try the ribeye steak with mashed potatoes and a garden salad.
Should we get some red wine to go with our steaks?
Sure, let's get a Napa cab.
Dialogue third time.
I hear they have the best selection of steaks here.
Perfect. Hopefully they have something for the both of us.
Yes, I like my steak thick and well done.
And I like mine juicy and rare.
You should try their filet mignon. I hear it's delicious.
That's a good idea. I'll get that with a baked potato and seasonal vegetables.
I might try the ribeye steak with mashed potatoes and a garden salad.
Should we get some red wine to go with our steaks?
Sure, let's get a Napa cab.
All right, Chris, which type of steak do you like? Are you a filet mignon kind of guy or a ribeye kind of guy?
You know, actually, I'm neither. My favorite kind of steak is it's called a tri-tip.
A tri-tip. I've never heard of that.
I don't really know much about it other than it's delicious. It's thick, usually a little bit bigger piece of meat than a filet mignon, and I think it has more fat in it, which to me makes it more tasty.
A tri-tip.
Tri-tip.
T-R-I.
-TIP. So it
Okay.
has 3. It's almost looks like a triangle of meat.
I will have to Google that and maybe try that next time I go to a steakhouse.
Exactly.
Now I like filet mignon, but sometimes if I'm feeling a little bit more hungry, I want a bigger piece of meat, I will order maybe like a Wagyu beef, which is a type of beef. It can be very expensive.
Yes, but very delicious.
Very delicious, very juicy, and very, very tender. Yeah. And what's your favorite type of steak? And what do you order it with? What do you like your sides? What do you like your wine? Let us know on openlanguage.com. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.